Hi guys, and welcome back to our channel for another sugar crafting video. This one we're doing a lovely Christmassy wreath with oodles and oodles of shiny red berries, because what would Christmas be without shiny red berries? They're one of my favourite things to make because they're just so lush and red and shiny. We'll do this in two parts. So on this one we're going to make all the stuff, so that's some berries, some rose hips, some lovely little leaves. And do come back and find us for part two, where I will show you how to tape it all together to make a nice little wreath that you can use for your Christmas table centrepiece with a candle or something if you wish. Enjoy the video. So before we get started making all the different bits, here's a list of all the things that you're going to need. It's a fairly long list, but that's because we want our little wreath to be very full and lush and so on. We'll also pop this information in the description. Let's get started. Right. So we're working with flour paste. I have, it may not surprise you to know, some of our own flour paste here that we're going to use. So this is what that is. That can go over there. And for the berries, of course, we need to make it red. So I'm using our red food colouring, and we're going to colour it. And there is one thing very important when you are colouring deep colours, and that is to not over saturate the flour paste with colouring. So I've kneaded my paste up, and we'll start adding some colouring to it. Right, so with most colours on the market, I'm sure, but certainly with ours, the colour on the label, whether it's the red, the leaf green, any of them, is what's inside the pot when it's at full saturation. So we're going to add the colour, and when we get the colour on the pot, you need to stop adding it, because putting more in isn't going to make it any darker. So I've got a reasonable amount because we want a deep colour, but it's not too much. And I'm just going to knead that in. Did you drop your phone, or was that another goal?
No, my phone just dropped.
Right. And you can see from that, oh, it does, cheese goes with everything. We've already got a really nice rich red there. So I do want it a little bit darker, and if we compare it to the label, you can see we can probably get a little bit more out of it. So I'm just going to add another small bit of colouring in there, and again, you're going a little bit at a time so that we don't make it into a sort of wet, sloppy mess full of colouring. And that is about it. Now, we've put quite a lot in, and it's also it's still humid. I don't know about you guys. It stopped raining yesterday, I think. Yeah. But that's been it. So what I'll often do, and I think we've spoken about this before, if I've got deep colours, is pop just a little bit of CMC or Tylo in it, and that's just going to help stiffen the paste up a little bit and counteract the colouring we've put in. And by a little bit, you just want a sort of a pinch off the end of your knife, something like that. And we'll knead that in. And that's just going to counteract the extra moisture that we've put in there with the colouring. Can you see that little bit of CMC has just taken the edge off the stickiness there, which is exactly what we want. To make our berries, I'm just using 28 gauge dark green wire, which I have some here. And I'm just going to cut it into 5 or 6 pieces. Not so short that it's difficult to handle, but not so long that you're sort of wasting wire. And I have some lovely, super sharp, highly efficient, brand new snips that Julie bought me because I was on a live the other day complaining that my ones had gone blunt, which was very kind of you. And they're really sharp, which is really good. So I have a little tea light, which I will get going there. And I'm going to use a little bit of petal base. So it's just white veggie fat. And I find that when you are rolling dozens upon dozens of little balls, it's much easier to get a nice round shape without it sticking everywhere. If you've just got that little bit of veggie fat on your fingers.
Yeah, great.
So we're just rolling little balls, anything from sort of the size of a petit pois to a garden pea, give or take. And a neat little trick if you're making lots and lots of berries, and this is what I will quite often do, take a larger lump, roll a sausage, and then get a pair of scissors. It doesn't matter what kind of scissors, but if you chop your sausage up, it's an easy way to create more or less evenly sized bits that you can then just pick up and roll into a nice little ball. You're putting quite a lot of pressure on your palm there, and you want to get a seamless ball. You are sort of pressing quite hard to squish the paste into itself to get rid of any little seams or lines or anything like that. And then you sort of ease off the pressure to actually form the little ball there. And it's one of those things, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And as I say, I find that just a tiny smidge of the veggie fat or petal base or whatever is quite useful. And to be honest, it doesn't really matter if they're not completely round. I'm going to be all right. I haven't counted the berries, but give us a bit and I will work it out. I will work that out. So you've got plenty of little red balls, and then what we're going to do is heat the wire and insert it into the ball. The hot wire will melt the sugar, and then it is the melting that will affix the wire on. So you just hold it in the candle flame. You will see it probably won't show on the camera, but when you do it, you will see it change colour. And then once it's nice and hot, insert it into the berry. And if you get that little hiss and that puff of smoke there, you know it was hot enough. And you can see it's stuck on straight away. Does the smoke show up?
Yeah, well, I can see it on the screen here. I can imagine they can see it. Yeah, there's a call for amount of them.
I will. Give me a minute and I'll do that. And then we're just going to pop them in some polystyrene. So I'll do that a couple more times. So when you insert the wire, you need to do it quite quickly because it will cool down very quickly. So you're just going to go straight through, and then it's quite nice to leave a little, let the wire poke out the top just a little bit, so it's just like that little knobby bit on the end of a berry, basically. For this, because we're doing it all, you know, in dark colours and things, it doesn't matter if the paper gets burnt at all. But if I grab a little bit of white wire, I'll show you what I do with that. So let's say you were making pale coloured, mistletoe will be in the winter foliage as well, by the way. So yes, let's say we were doing white berries on a white wire. When you heat the wire up, you can see where it's gotten burnt. Don't worry about that at all. Carry on, heat the wire up, insert it through and keep pushing until you reach the bottom of that burnt bit, just there. And then at some point, you can do it now, you can wait till they've dried, whatever. You're just going to come and snip the top off. And nobody would ever know that the tape there, that the paper on the wire had burnt. That's pretty much it for the berries. You just need to make sure that you do it quickly. You need the hiss and the puff of smoke. Make sure that if you hold, when you're heating the wire up, if you hold it too far down like this, it's very difficult to then accurately poke it into your berry. Just because it's a long way from your fingers, it's just the way your body works. But if you hold it a little bit closer, it's much easier to be accurate with where you are poking it, basically. What I like to do with them, and this becomes relevant a little bit later on, so I have a few that I made earlier, just here. And what I like to do, these ones are a bit pale actually. This one we've done just now is a much better colour. What I like to do is a little bit of polystyrene, and then I stack them up in all these nice neat little rows like this. And the reason why will become clear soon. Okay. When I'm making lots of berries like this, as I said, when I did these the other day, can you see that these ones are a little bit paler? They were too pale, so I actually had to just chuck some ruby dust on them before I glazed them, which is really annoying because I made all of these berries, and so that I had enough to then show you guys how to do it, all of these berries. It was really, really annoying. So it is best with the red ones to, especially because we're going to glaze them, to get a nice deep red to start with. So the colour that we've just mixed up, so these ones here rather than these ones, is much better. But if you do find it's a little bit pale, you can just dust them up. And as I said, it was just ruby. There's nothing more than that to just deepen that red colour. So we'll do some little rose hips now, which look like this when they're undusted. And then I have got some dusted and glazed ones just there, and there's just a few of them. Where are they? We've got some here and here and here. It's just a little bit of texture, a little bit of something different. So for these wee rose hips, we are going to want a pair of tweezers, a slightly bigger lump of paste. So I've got it's probably about 1 centimetre across, so a chickpea, if you will. Guys, if you wait until the end, I will count up how many things I've got, because I'll be honest with you, I've got no idea. I meant to count and I didn't, so I will do that before we go this evening. I'm going to take a couple of bits of 28 gauge wire again, like so. But this time, before we put them in, I'm going to do a little hook on the end of that wire. So just like that, just little hooks on the end, and then I will heat this up. So I'm heating up pretty much the whole hook, and I'm going to insert it into my larger ball, so it's about the size of a chickpea. Pop it in, give it just a little quarter turn, and this time, do you see it's not sticking out of the top there, so you don't want it to poke all the way out. Again, we'll heat that up, pop that in, sort of about a quarter turn, and then with the, no, it's just a single hook, so it's just looped over like that. Can you zoom in on that for me, darling? So yeah, it's just a single hook, just like this, and you just want it, you know, of a size to go into that kind of chickpea sized ball. And then to form the little bit on the top of the rose hip, we're just going to take our tweezers, and you're going to do 3 or 4 fairly pinchy pinches, by which I mean don't be shy of grabbing a little chunk of paste and sort of pulling it up. And then can you see that you get that wee little frilly bit on the end, much like little rose hips have. And I was looking at pictures of rose hips, and there's so many different ones depending on, as you would imagine, what rose it's come from. So yeah, these are just some simple little ones. If you find what happened there happens, where it sticks to the paste, you can just clean these. And the other thing that you can do is just rub a smidgen again of petal base, Trex, Kofa, Crisco, just a white veggie fat, and that is going to stop your tweezers sticking to your flower paste there. And that is it for the little rose hips. So the last thing we have to make is some wee leaves. So I can, yeah, just very, very simple little leaves. So I have used the smallest muffle cutter to do these. So the muffles are the Multi-use Petals and Leaves. When did we release these? A couple of years ago, I think. So it's a set of 5. They're available on our website, which is where you can also get the flower paste, all of the colours, the dust, everything. But yeah, set of 5, and they're just very useful. And as I said, multi-use petals and leaves, mupples for short, called so because we use them for everything from ruscus to lilies, irises, gosh, all sorts of different things. And for this, we're just using that littlest one there. And of course we need some green. So I've kneaded that up, and we're just going to use a little bit of leaf green. And again, we don't want to put too much in, it's just a wee bit, because we're aiming for this sort of medium colour, which will then enhance with the dust and the glaze and everything. So easy does it, because we can always add more, but you can't take it away. So yeah, it's about that sort of colour, maybe just a tiny bit more. Do you want to put a link up, Chris?
Yeah, I would.
So yes, just a nice medium green. Like so. Sticky fingers. Evening, Sinethra. Hope you're well. We'll roll this out, if I can find my rolling pin. There he is. So relatively thin, as always. Not so thin that we're causing ourselves a liability, but thin enough that it's nice and delicate. And if you're sticking, we can just pop a little bit of cornflour front and back. That was, to be fair, to start with, quite a bit of cornflour. So I'm going to cut these out and pop them straight onto my petal pad. And because this is such a wee cutter, more often than not, you just want to use your Dresden to pop the little shape out. Like so. So I'll do 3. So you can see, and we're only after that one size, so it's just a bunch of those. And as I said, we're just keeping it very simple because we're letting the style and the colour and everything do the work for us. So I'm just going to go round the edges with my ball tool just to thin them a little bit. And then we're going to use the pointy end of the Dresden to do that central vein. And this is one of those times where don't use your Dresden like this, like a pen. You want to use it on its side so that you're catching the bottom of that triangular bit there. And we can just start at the top and just run a central vein down each little leaf, like so. These will also go onto 28 gauge wires. So again, about 1/5 of a piece of wire will do. And then we're going to make a little twiddle to go on it, which is how I do most leaves and petals. It's the way I find easiest. If you prefer a different method, then of course that's fine, but it's where we make a little sausage of flower paste on the wire, and then we use that to attach the wire to the leaf. So we'll take just a tiny little bit, and again, if your fingers are sticky, give them a wash And you can always go for a little bit of the Trex or petal base to stop them sticking. So we've a little sausage, tiny bit of glue that will dab on the back of our hands, just so it's not swimming in glue. And then I'm just going to insert the sausage there, and then you can see you're just twisting it down so that you get that nice skinny shaft of flour paste there. So we're just going to pop a little tiny bit of glue onto the twiddles there. And in terms of length, you want the twiddles to be sort of 2/3 to 3/4 the length of the leaves. So we'll pop those on. One there, one there, and finally the last one here. And then what I quite like doing is to use that long, sort of flat but gentle bit of my little finger there, just to press those on. And then with each one, we'll just pinch the end closed there, and then we can just give them a little bit of bend and a little bit of shape, just so that they're not static. And again, shaping these, if you want to do a sort of a bit, get them to fold back a little bit, if you just pop a gentle finger on the twiddle there and pull the tail up, you can give it that little convex shape. So for the rose hips, here's a couple I made earlier. I'm going to use just a little bit of burgundy dust underneath to make them slightly darker, and then we're going to use a little bit of brown on the top. So as always with our dust, we're going to pick some up from the pot, plop it on the paper, and then sort of rub our brush in it, and that's so that you've got the colour in the bristles instead of on the bristles, because if you've got lumps of dust on the brush, when you start to use it, it's just going to end up a bit of a streaky mess, whereas this way you've got more control. And then from the bottom up, just like that, we're just going to give it just a hint of shading there. Like so. And then the little frilly bit we made on top, you're just going to take some brown, and I'm using one of the extra small round brushes, it's the smallest round brush there, and you're just going to dab on top like this. And you see that it quite, that dab quite happily catches the frilly bits on top. And that's it, because we'll glaze these along with the berries and the leaves and stuff. And as you can see, that little bit of glaze just transforms them completely again. So very, very simple for those. And then for the leaves, pretty simple again. I'm just using some leaf green and some deep green. Because I have some that are here I made earlier. So I'm going to take some leaf green, and again, getting plenty of the colour in the bristles instead of on the bristles. And from the bottom up, we're just going to give it a nice coating of that leaf green. And you see, if you compare the two there, oh, wanted out of shot, sorry. If you look at those two there, the dust, it just makes it look alive. It gives it more of a zing to the colour. So we'll do that bottom up on all three of them. Like so. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the deep green, again working it into my brush, and we're just going to go sort of bottom up, and it's those short repetitive brush strokes to blend the colour so that we've just kind of got that darker bit at the bottom, rather than just sort of one flat shade. like so. And that's pretty much it as far as the dusting is concerned. So we're on. Right, I have a box that I have been using to glaze things for about 3 years. So it is disgusting, basically. So actually, do you want to do front view for a second? So please don't judge the inside of this box. It's horrid. But as I say, I've been using it to glaze things for about 3 years. The reason that I was quite specific about having all my berries on a little bit of polystyrene neatly lined up is because you can then hold this bit of polystyrene. Would you swap views, please? In your box and spray them. So I have a can of, so I've got some berries here. I've got those rose hips there. I've the Cake Star Spray Shine glaze, which is my favourite one. So there's there's at least 2, if not more than that, spray glazes on the market. You can get PME one or Cake Star one. Cake Star one's expensive. It's about £10 for a thingy, but it's literally twice the size. PME one's 100ml, this one's 200ml. This will last you ages. And I prefer this one because the nozzle on the PME one seems to get bunged up all the time, whereas this one, not so much. So I've specifically got one of these recently because this one was driving me bonkers. If you find it is getting gummed up, they'll come off. So you can pull that nozzle off. This bit won't get gummed, it's this bit that does. And you want some rejuvenator or glaze cleaner, which are basically the same thing, high percentage alcohols, but either will do. And just do a little pot or a thimble. Yeah, shot glass, better thing. And just leave that in it to soak for a little while, and that will dissolve the glaze that is stuck in here and gamming it up. Because what happens is if the nozzle gets
glazed up,
gets glazed
over,
you'll use it and you think you're spraying here, but actually it's going to shoot off in that direction or whatever it is. And there's I've made a lime scale on the shower. And exactly, yes. Yeah. So yeah, if you find that it has got gummed up, then you can clean it, and you can hear it even. Just if you can get the Cake Star one, go for that. So you're just going to do. Oh, she says as that happens. Right, let's see if I press that on properly. There we go. You're just going to do a couple of light coats, move it around. We'll let that dry and we'll come back and do it again in just a minute. Wise to open a window because it stinks and is probably not something we should be breathing in.
No.
So with leaves, what I'll usually do is lay them all out on a piece of paper like this. And of course you can lay plenty out. So I did this on a bit of cardboard, which is why there's cards stuck to the bottom. This is swimming in glaze. So it's better if it's dry, right? Because then you can lift your piece of paper into the box. And then again, just a light coat with the glaze. And what I will sometimes do, so my berries have almost dried that first one there. What I'll sometimes do is I'll leave the leaves in the box whilst I spray berries, because then of course anything that's not getting on the berries ends up on the leaves, and you kind of get 2 for 1 as far as that is concerned. And don't forget that glaze will come off. Again, alcohol is what just dissolves it. So whether you've got rejuvenator fluid glaze cleaner, or indeed you can use something that we all now probably have at home, which is your hand sanitizer, will work as well, to get glaze off of things. So to tape them together, we're using brown tape, and I've cut it into about 1/3 width. And the easiest way to do this is to take a length of tape fold it up like so, and make sure that it's sort of flush with itself, and then we'll just cut it into thirds like so. And of course you can open it up and then your tape is ready to go. Remember that your floral tape is sort of crinkled up paper with a waxy stuff on the inside of those crinkles, that it's not sticky like sellotape is sticky, but it is it's tacky, so it will stick to itself and so on. To do the wee wreath, I've done little branchettes of sort of 4 or 5 berries, like so. They're nice and easy to tape together, which is what I will show you now. So we're just going to take one berry. Do you want to zoom in a wee bit for this for me? Perfect. So we'll take one berry and attach the tape, and you want to be, it's about 1 inch from where the berry is. Put a little kink in the top of a second berry and attach him on. Wrap that tape round and then bring it down a little. We'll add another berry. Wrap the tape round and bring it down. Add another one. Pull the tape down slightly and then add another berry. As I said, all of mine were 4 or 5 berries on a little branch. And then with these, simply because of how we're going to attach them into the wreath, just make sure that you tape all the way to the end so that you're making those green sticks below brown with the tape. And that is it for taping those together. So we'll do one more. If you're sort of new to this side of things, getting the tape started is one of those things that can be a little bit of a pain. How I tend to do it is I lay the tape over the thing that I want to attach it to, fold it underneath like that, sort of pincer it with my thumb and forefinger there so that I can wrap it round a couple of times like that to get it started. And once that's done, then you can twist it. We'll add another one in and wrap it round, and then just don't forget, you don't really ever want your tape to be completely perpendicular to the wires there, so you don't want it at 90-degree angle, because if you wrap that, all that will happen is it will just wrap up on top of itself. If you have it angled upwards like this, then as you twist, the tape will travel up, and if you've got it angled down like that, then as you twist, the tape will travel down. So you just want to make sure you've got it a bit of a downward angle, so you can bring it down a little bit, add another berry, bring it down a bit more for one more there. And you can have a little play with these. You can make some of them longer, some of them shorter. You can make them a bit more gappy, you know, whatever really. So this is just brown that I'm using. It's just brown tape, which again we have on our website if you're in need of it. And we're just going to do that until you've got plenty. The rose hips I've done just very similar, and I've just done a little 2s. You could even go for 3 if you wanted, but mostly 2s. So I have one here. Is that dry? It's dry enough. So again, we'll attach the tape, wind it on, pop a second one in position, just a little bit lower, just so that they're not sitting together. Makes it a bit more interesting. And again, just make sure that you bring that tape all the way down so that you're hiding the green wires. So that's it. Yeah, just little pairs for these. With the little leaves, so we're just going to do little sprigs of 2 or 3, as you can see there. These, yeah, they've dried, more or less the ones that I've just sprayed, so I'm just going to use those. For the for the 2s, it's as simple as attaching the tape to the first one, and then we'll just add a second leaf. So just bend the wire there so that he's leaning one way or the other, and tape it on again just a little bit lower, because that's a more natural look than having it sort of making bunny ears like that. So just a tiny bit lower. Just wrap that tape and bring it down. And then if you want to do the little threesome, then it is pretty much exactly the same. So we'll attach the tape to one. We'll add a little leaf off to one side. Wrap the tape, bring it down just a little. We can bend that one the other way. Stick him on the other side. And then weave a little 3-leafed sprig. And again, bring the tape all the way to the bottom, like so. And then the final thing that we've got in these here is some of these, which are just the little twiggy bits. So if we look at the wreath there, there's actually quite a few twiggy bits. And it just gives it a little bit more shape, and it makes it a bit wilder and fills it out a bit. So you can prep these before next week. It's just 28 gauge wire, so I've just got one here. And you can do it with whatever brown tape you like, full width, half width, doesn't matter. And just literally tape all the way up the wire. And I find I usually do these in stages. I don't do them all at once because I find it hurts my fingers.
Well, yeah, twisting action gets to you after a while.
It does, and then the other day I made myself work out how to do it left-handed, and it still feels a little bit strange. So normally I would do that, but I can do it this way round. I just end up holding it a little bit strange because it's back to front what my hands do. But yeah, so if you do sort of, like I said, I'll do a post and write this down. But if you do 3 or 4 full length 28 gauge wires covered in the brown tape, then those are ready for us to chop up and use to sort of thicken that out as we go. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed that and making all of those lovely lush little berries. Don't forget to find part 2 where I'll show you how to tape it all together. And of course, if you need any supplies, colours, any bits and pieces like that, you can find them on our website. Link is in the description below.